Here we are, Survivor All-Stars.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tribe of Nerds. Devin and I are back for more Survivor What Makes. This week we're talking about what makes a Survivor returnee. Devin and I have had experience with that in Vanquish, so we know very much what that feeling is like. And we're excited to talk about all the people that have returned to play Survivor.
Yeah, I think this is going to be fun. I think that there's multiple reasons to why people return. Obviously, you got things like I don't know why I cracked up right there. Okay. Got things like fan favorite, a status in the game that they kind of become within their first run, a legacy type player. You've got things like untapped potential, wild card, production favorite. We'll get into it with each player on why we think they were brought back. I think that we're just going to start season for season, which means that we're going to start with the first ever season to have returning players. Season 8, Survivor All-Stars.
Yeah. All-Stars was like a groundbreaking thing at the time, because I think there'd probably been shows where they'd had people come back to them after being on them before, but this was groundbreaking at the time when there wasn't too much of it. So I think it was definitely huge for 18 people to come back to play again. So but let's talk about specifically why they brought certain people back. I mean, you had people that were obviously going to be back, like the fan favorites. You had Rupert coming right back from Pearl Islands. You had Colby, who was obviously the fan favorite from Australian Outback, no brainer. Richard Hatch, I mean, you have to have the first winner there. So there's the obvious picks, and then there's people like Boston Rob and Sheehan at the time who didn't even make jury their first time. So
yeah, I think that we could kind of sum up the majority of this cast into a few different categories. I think the first one that I think is easy to talk about is this was their first go at returning players. So I think that it made sense. They have to bring back some winners. They brought back 2 men, 2 women who had won the game. Richard Hatch and Ethan. I think Ethan's a very popular winner. Richard Hatch, original winner. And then you got Tina and Jenna. I think Tina was brought back as the first female to win. And I think that Jenna, I think that they were trying to also feel a role that they like to have on their seasons of young, attractive in a bikini. She's a winner that also does that. So I think that that's why she was probably selected. Obviously over some of the other female winners. I think Sandra was kind of sick at the time, or else I think Sandra probably does take this slot.
Yep.
And then obviously production was never high on Vesepia.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a travesty. I think Vesepia would have been a more interesting returnee, but
yeah,
I think that the reason they choose Jenna is because she does fulfill another archetype that they like to have.
Yeah, exactly. I do 100% agree with that. I would have loved to see Vesepia play again. She's come out in recent years and been they never even contacted her to play again, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think it was groundbreaking at the time for Vesepia to be the first person of color to win Survivor. And I just think that they should have respected her legacy at all. They just didn't respect it at all. And I think that's ridiculous.
I think you already hit on the second group that we can talk about, which is the fan favorites. I think that this is going to be Rupert falls into this category. Colby obviously falls into this category.
Rudy,
yeah. There's they fulfill this archetype that's going to draw in fans.
Yeah.
They're brought back for the fans, because obviously these players, their gameplay is sometimes good, sometimes mediocre. They don't have to be great at the game to be a fan favorite. You just have to be really liked by the audience at the time. There's also a group of villainistic characters that I think they chose to bring back. Obviously, you got Jerry, Manthe, you got Sue, Hawk, Lex. I think category. basically, I think, obviously, I think to a degree, Alicia actually falls into this category.
I do agree with that. Yeah, I mean, her whole moment of wagging her finger in Kimmy's face. I mean, I think that can be seen as like an infamous, like villainous moment.
And then obviously, like, there's like this, what would you call it, like strategic factor to Rob Cesternino as well, but I think it also falls into this category of being kind of like a villain.
Yeah.
But also like he's clearly a production favorite, which is kind of the next category. This is going to be like your Boston Robs brought back for, I think, for this reason. I think that like is Boston Rob probably the only one that was guaranteed to come back because he was a production favorite from this season? I'm trying to like run through the cast.
I mean, regardless, Colby was always getting brought back, but I definitely think Jeff loved Colby as well. But like, regardless, he was getting brought back because he was a fan favorite, and was an all-star for sure because of how he did. So I don't know. Like, I think Boston Rob probably is the one that fits that mold for sure.
Yeah, and then you got players like I think Jenna, Sheehan.
I think Amber is like the big WTF pick at the time because like I think everybody wanted Elizabeth Hasselbeck or Colleen Haskell, and then they couldn't get either, so they settled for Amber.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that like particularly with Sheehan and Jenna, I think that they've seen untapped potential with them, like that they could be better than what their previous runs gave us. I do think that the wild card pick for the season ended up being Amber, and I think you're correct on why. But I think that Amber's run, while I think that at the time she was just kind of a substitute, I think it did create this archetype of an under the radar type female player that they would want to bring back. And we'll talk more about it as we get into other seasons with returnees. But Amber kind of trailblazed a new type of reason to bring somebody back, and that is like obviously like the untapped potential thing, but it's like so untapped that the production team truly didn't even see it. But I think overall, like at this beginning stage, we see that mostly it's going to be fan favorites, people who were good with production or well liked by production, and players who can fulfill like legacy style archetypes like the Jerrys and stuff that are going to be the main sources of returnees in these earlier seasons. As we go on, I think there's a little bit of weirder reasons to why people are brought back.
Yeah, 100%. And like I think like you bring up the under the radar female that I think a lot of fans after this are like, ooh, like the Parvati's, the Monica Padillas, the Kelly Wentworths, like these are the people that are going to win now because they're the under the radar female or people that are underestimated going in. So I definitely think it set the bar for that archetype. I did also want to bring up with production. I just remembered, like, I think Lex was a shoo-in anyway from Africa, but I think there was also the whole like production controversy in Africa with Big Tom and Lex with the quiz where they answered the question about Kelly Goldsmith correctly, they answered it correctly, or Lex did, and they said it was Ron, and then Kim Johnson wins immunity and goes on her little run at the end of the game and basically sets the tone for the fact like she's going to knock out both Big Tom and Lex. So like they have to do something. Like there's the rumor going around that they had a settlement with Big Tom and Lex and like paid the money and were like, you're guaranteed all-star spots.
Yeah, I think that like while we're on the subject of Big Tom, because we've kind of hit on Lex with the villain thing.
Yeah.
Big Tom also kind of a I wouldn't say he was like to the levels of like a Rupert or a Colby, but he was definitely a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And that we haven't hit on that I think also falls into this like fan favorite, but was also a production favorite was Kathy.
Yep.
So I think that like overall, the original All-Stars was it was actually kind of the perfect selection. I think that there's like one or two people you could probably say like maybe Jenna shouldn't have played because she was obviously not in the best headspace or
right.
Really. There's a few things like that you can say, but as a like on script paper, like this is pretty standard for what I would expect from an All-Star season.
Yeah, for the first 7 seasons, I think this was a pretty spot-on cast at the time. Obviously the WTF picks, but like in general, for who they could get, I think they nailed most of like the big names that they had to get for the first All-Stars. So, well, let's move on to our first captain season for Returnees, and we have Survivor Guatemala. We have Bobby John and Stephanie. And this was definitely because Ulan, they were the last 2 members of the Ulan tribe, and production felt really bad. It's also interesting because originally I think it was supposed to be either Roger Bainham and Scoopin or Jonathan Libby and Wanda Shirk, because they felt bad for Wanda and Jonathan not getting picked. And instead, because of Stephanie's popularity and everything, they just decided, okay, we'll go with Stephanie and Bobby John instead. And I think for it being a captain season and for like kind of like the stories of Palau, I think this was they were probably solid. I mean, Stephanie's obviously like as a player and a fan favorite at the time is a good choice. And then Bobby John's just a spaz and a character. So like I think Bobby John worked for what they were going for with casting him again.
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie, I think, was a shoo-in to be brought back no matter what because of her popularity. Obviously, like her legacy in the game of basically being the last surviving member of a tribe. I think Bobby John makes sense for the second pick. I do think it makes more sense to do a male and a female in these types of seasons. And the only other person I can ever think them picking instead of Bobby John to go against Stephanie would probably be Rupert. And it would just be because popular man and most popular woman at that time in Survivor to play. But I think with us just seeing Rupert on All Stars, I think Bobby John's the better choice here, just because like he's fresh from the same season. They kind of have a little bit of a friendship rivalry kind of thing. So I think this makes perfect sense for our first returning captain season, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything against this pair going up against each other because at least they have history, as opposed to what we'll get from later captain seasons. The players don't exactly have history together up until that point. But they will get history for later, but we'll talk about that. All right, let's hit fans versus favorites, Micronesia. 10 fan favorite players from Survivor history. And it was generally supposed to be seasons 9 through 15, I think, but then they put in Fair Play. Obviously, Fair Play, like, huge villain. I feel like it obviously made sense for them to eventually bring Fair Play back, even though Jeff hated Fair Play at the time. But then, like, this favorites tribe is pretty stacked with all-star players, fan favorites. I mean, you've got I don't have anything against this favorites tribe as compared to the second favorites tribe that we'll talk about later. This favorites tribe makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, overall, we get super huge popular players like James, Ozzy, Yao Man. They kind of are in, and Suri, I think, are the 4 like big popular players.
Yeah.
And we kind of get the, quintessential like villain picks. That's your Fair Play, your Amy, your Eliza to a degree. Penner, yeah. And then we get what would I say, like a palatable, like she Amanda's not somebody who at the time I think stood out necessarily for her personality or being like but she was likable enough to be. And then she had a really strong run in her season. So it's like not somebody that I think the audience is going to question while she's back just because of how well she'd done. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of get the F pick in Parvati, who kind of was the first person to fill this role that Amber kind of created. And, she obviously goes on to win Micronesia, which kind of, I think, puts a target on the back of this type of player. Yeah. But I do think that the Parvati choice, obviously she was a replacement, I'm pretty sure, for Candace.
Yep.
Declined to play. But I actually think that Parvati was the better choice overall anyway. Just in hindsight being 2020, knowing what Parvati manages to do in Survivor as far as a legacy in the history of the game, this was the best choice they made out of the 10 they picked. And obviously that's me saying, coming from me, that's great because everybody knows that I'm like the biggest fan of Amy. So, but I think Parvati kind of put the cherry on the sundae when it comes to like, you can go from pretty much nothing to creating a huge legacy just with one return.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Parvati continued to define what Amber set up. And then, like, Amanda, I think it's interesting as well. The fans on the season didn't get to see Amanda's game as much because I think her game really takes off in the second half of China. So when they were out there, they had no idea who Amanda was really. But like from the fans that had actually watched the season, the rest of China right before, they obviously knew who Amanda was going in. And then as we said, like the villains and the fan favorites, I think that pretty much sums up this favorites tribe. So I got nothing against this tribe really. So
which moves us kind of into what? Heroes versus villains, right?
Yeah. So heroes versus villains, we obviously have a bunch of legacy players. You have Boston Rob, you have Colby, you have Jerry, you have Rupert, and then and Stephanie as well. And Sari and Parvati. So you have a bunch of those. And then and James, yes. And so a bunch of these legacy players, and then you're going to bring back a bunch of these other memorable players from the past few seasons that haven't gotten another chance yet. So you get obviously the Dragon Slayer Coach. You have to have Coach in there because Coach is your wackadoo. You have, Courtney is an amazing character, even though the season decides to not give her more than 4 confessionals, but she's amazing in all of them. Obviously, Sandra, they're going to bring back from Pearl Islands to finally be back here. And then, Tyson's a great character. Again, he doesn't get too much leading up to his blind side, but you still get some good quotes there. Randy and Sugar were like the definition of what Gabon was. So like it made sense for them to bring them back, especially also because Gabon was like heroes versus villains in itself. Sugar's trying to get rid of the bad people, and Randy is like one of those bad people. So like they had some really great picks. I mean, this cast is one of the best in the history of Survivor, and it's one of the best seasons for a reason.
Yeah, I think that this season, obviously outside of, I think it's 9 of them were this was their three-peat, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So of the 11 that were selected on top of them, I think that, we get the traditional things. Russell's a mega villain. This is also a thing where we see 2 new things, I think, with the returning style, like reasons to return. I think Sandra and Courtney fall into this category for sure of players who were originally set to return, with Sandra pretty much being asked back for All Stars and Fans versus Favorites before it was changed to Fans versus Favorites, and getting cut both times, or declining and then getting cut. I think it makes sense to finally bring her back now. I think that also like Candace was, originally supposed to be set. Courtney was, I think, supposed to be set or was asked to do. Both of them were asked to do Fans versus Favorites, and they declined. So you get the opportunity to bring them back. Obviously, you hit on Coach and then Tyson, who I think are just like a legacy player. Coach will continue to build a legacy as he plays. And Tyson, I think, was untapped potential his first time. I think they've seen a lot of strength in Tyson as a player.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that later, that they were correct on this.
Yeah. And then
are the 2 that I want to talk about. I think
Randy and Sugar.
New type of returnee style where they choose 2 players from a season that did not like each other and will have a rivalry. Like this is like the first time we kind of obviously got the Jerry Colby thing, but that kind of just felt special back in the day. Like it was just this one-off thing. And now we're going to start seeing this really take up where multiple times they will, if they have an overall like half or more a returnee cast, they will purposely put 2 people who butted heads their first season just to guarantee drama. I think Sugar was supposed to be that. Obviously, it did not follow through, but I think that was why they were casted.
Yeah, I understand 100% like all the reasons why both of them were cast. Unfortunately, they're going to be the first boots from their tribes, so like it's really not going to work out. I obviously you mentioned Russell. I mean, Russell 100% after what happened just then in Samoa. I mean, he is like the obvious biggest villain that people just saw, so of course people are going to want Russell back. JT being the most recent popular winner, like obviously JT makes sense as well. And then you're bringing back like Tom Westman is another great popular winner. People love Tom. So if you're doing heroes versus villains, Tom makes sense as a hero, and how he played the game. So regardless of some perceptions or some like manipulation that he did, he still was a hero. But
those two were, because obviously they were winners, but also because of they were fan favorite winners. The other I do think we should hit on is a continuation of the trend that we've seen that was started by Amber. I think this season did have that person. I think that was Danielle.
Yeah.
Her role in this season. Obviously, Danielle unfortunately did not continue the trend of this person going on to become a millionaire. But I do think that for a super fan, I don't think it was crazy to think Danielle would return. But I think for a casual, Danielle is somebody who I think they would have a harder time remembering in comparison to players like Coach and JT and Courtney and all these other bigger names. So I think that she was supposed to be their like under the radar, you know, wild card female pick for this cast.
100%. And like Danielle, she is someone that we've talked to in recent years. She's become a friend of the show. I've met her. She is great. And she actually came up to me and said hi to me, which was really fun over the edge. So yeah, she is she's great. And I think like the show again didn't really give her as much, and I feel like the reasoning of she's labeled a villain because she screwed Terry Dietz out of $1 million is really funny. Like we've talked to her about that, and it's just really funny, like the reasoning they came up with for why Danielle's a villain.
Yeah. We do move forward immediately from Heroes versus Villains with the rivalry of Russell and Rob when they immediately for Redemption Island. I think that that's self-explanatory there. This is the butting of heads thing they really like. I think that this was coming no matter what. They even like alluded to it in the, you know, reunion of Heroes versus Villains where I think Russell, who like was like, I want to go up against Rob head to head or something like that, or
yeah, it was like you know, Russell talking about how he's one of the greatest, and Boston Rob's like, you know, are given the opportunity, I'll gladly kick your ass all over the island again. And I did want to say though, I believe Redemption Island was originally Russell versus Richard Hatch. Originally it was supposedly that, and then Richard Hatch couldn't get out of the country at the time, so they went with this rivalry from the Heroes versus Villains reunion. I don't know 100% the truth, but that's like the rumor that's gone around for a while, and I think it's kind of just been accepted that that was like 100% what was originally going to be the plan. But I think it makes sense based on obviously what they teased at the Heroes versus Villains reunion. I think it would have been weird not to follow up on that.
Yeah. And that moves us immediately into another captain season with South Pacific being this to me, this was always weird. Coach, one's a fan favorite, the other's like, for lack of a better word, a nuisance to the like, I mean, I love Coach. Like I am a fan because I think Coach is hilarious. But most casual viewers back then, they were annoyed greatly by Coach. Like they were rooting against Coach. So I guess like the idea was to have somebody who the audience couldn't stand go up against somebody the audience like seen could do no wrong. But it just felt like I feel like what production wanted to happen in this season was reversed. Like the one who took control of the game, which is good on Coach. I think that it does put more merit on Coach as a player, but I did always find this pairing a little odd. I understand why they brought them back, but I just think it was a strange choice.
Yeah, it definitely was a strange choice. This is what I was alluding to earlier. Like, this is two players who don't have any history going in. They've never played together before. The only similarity is they both played twice, like at the time. Like Ozzy's made it to a final tribal council at that time. Coach will in this season, but hasn't yet. So it is just very, very peculiar that they went with these two going up against each other. I believe as well that it was supposed to be Coach versus Philip Shepard. And that would make more sense. And then Philip declined at the time before he would come back for Caramoan. But that would have made way more sense for Philip versus Coach rather than Ozzy versus Coach. So I do believe that because it is such a weird matchup. And it is, yeah, Coach is going to cement his legacy, and then we will actually see that these two will get history from this season going into 50. So at least, that will come to fruition.
Payoff happens, but the payoff takes 27 more seasons. Some sort of payoff to this. I do think it's, kind of funny. Did you know the original title for South Pacific was supposed to be Survivor Lunatic Island?
That's yeah. That would make sense. Because you also had Brandon Hance out there. So
we're awful. Okay. We do go into a third captain season where the idea for the returning players is they were people who were injured and medically removed from the game. Obviously, Pinner, for me, this makes the most sense. And the weird thing is I'm pretty sure Pinner was the last one picked.
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds correct to me. I mean, we'll talk about the other two in a moment. I think with Penner, it's like 100%, like if you're looking at the board of all the people who have been medevaced, like, yeah, Penner's already played twice compared to the other two, but like, he just has so much more memorability if you're looking at the board and not in a way that's like controversial, because I believe otherwise they would have tried to go with Colton. But thankfully they didn't until a couple seasons later anyway. But I wouldn't have been surprised if for whatever reason they really tried to be like, oh yeah, we know people hated Colton this past season, but we're going to try to bring him back anyway with this group. And that's what I thought at the time that was what was going to happen. And thankfully that's not what happened. So
and I think Pinner, I'm glad Pinner got this. Because let's face it, Pinner's run in Cook Islands is almost iconic for how wishy-washy and flip-floppy he was. And it was in a strategic way. It wasn't like he was like an emotional flip-flopper. This was somebody who was playing the game strategically, but flipping and flopping in the, Johnny Fairplay and Rob Sesternino type of way, except with way less tact. And that's way more interesting to watch. So I think that obviously, him losing out on his second chance in Micronesia due to an injury makes more sense to bring him back than someone like Colton. The other two, obviously, looking at it at the time, I get it.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020. Maybe shouldn't have casted Scoopin ever even on his original season. But
like you said, hindsight is 2020. At the time, Scoopin was like him falling in the fire is one of the most iconic reality TV moments. So 100%, like at the time, it made perfect sense. Nobody knew what Scoopin actually was, unfortunately. And so, even if you look back and kind of the clues are kind of there that he's a delusional psychopath. But I think at the time, 100%, it makes sense. And then Russell Swan, I mean, he's the first player to literally almost die on the show. And so 100%, like this is the other most memorable medevac from the history of Survivor. And obviously it's going to go really badly for Russell Swan this time around, but it made sense at the time. This is who they went with on the cast.
So this was basically they deserve a second chance was the overall theme with the actual sub thing being they deserved a second chance because they got injured and were removed after they voted out. So I think that that one is self-explanatory. And now we're going to move into a very interesting group of returnees with Fans versus Favorites 2 Electric Boogaloo, where we use the term favorites extremely loosely. I mean, we have Malcolm, who's a fan.
Yeah.
I think Brenda going into the season was definitely a fan favorite. I think Cochran makes sense because of his legacy question. Like his storyline in his original season was very, very compelling. So it makes sense to bring him back. He was an audience favorite. I mean, every time I think of that, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the picture of Christine from his season dressed as him for Halloween is what comes to my mind.
Anyway, I've never seen that.
Anyway, I think he makes sense. Philip, obviously, and Corinne, I think that they make sense in the sense that they definitely bring like the villain factor they like to have. Even Andrea and Dawn, I think, are people who had like untapped potential. And they kind of prove it this season that they had untapped potential. But then you've got like people who couldn't have passed the psych test. I know they didn't do it with Brandon Hance. You can't convince me they did. But I don't understand that choice. And then you got Francesca, who starts this, continues this trend of just casting someone for the sheer spectacle of seeing them have an argument with somebody they had to argue. This would have been like if they brought back Kimmy Kappenberg for All-Star simply to have a fight with Alicia.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it would have been like. She literally was there to piss Philip Shepard off. And that's 100% the reason. I think Jeff even literally said it in the cast assessment at the time. We do also have Eric Reichenbach on this season as well. And I think he's interesting, not just because of the immunity necklace, but I mean, that's a huge part of it. But having a fan from the first Fans versus Favorites become a favorite, it made perfect sense. And if you're going to cast any one of those, you absolutely cast Eric. So, I mean, Natalie Bolton would have been the other choice, but like that's probably the only other one you would have gone with.
So I think that what I want to say, I actually don't have much issue with this cast, or this cast of returnees, in the sense that 8 out of 10 of them, I get why they were brought back. Like, I think the problem that a lot of people don't realize with this cast is not necessarily that these people didn't deserve to return. It just feels very hodgepodge together, because there's so many of them from Redemption Island and
South Pacific,
that the ones who aren't from those seasons, Eric, Brenda, Corinne, and
Malcolm.
Which Malcolm kind of still fits in because they usually only bring one person back from the most previous season. Like one time they did 2 with James and Amanda, but like usually it is just one.
Right.
But the others just kind of feel miscombobulated, and it was very clear that like Brenda wasn't in the best headspace to be playing the game. Obviously, like Corinne brings what you want from her. I think it was just kind of, at the time, it felt a little like our first Fans versus Favorites was clearly like 9 extremely popular players and 1 really good wild card.
Mm-hmm.
And this one felt like 2 really good players and 7 wild cards and Francesca. Well, and Brandon. Like, because honestly, I would rather see Francesca return as a favorite.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't think Brandon Hance fit under favorite under any definition. And like 100%, I think that is also because of the fact like they wanted to capitalize on Russell Hance. They were still in Hance Mania, like they were finishing that off because this is the same year, I think, or like the year before they had Russell's brother Willie on Big Brother and he got ejected. So
that went so well for them. There's nothing like live feeds where somebody gets so mad that they charge someone and headbutt them in the face. I mean, they're we are all for compelling TV, but I don't know if Big Brother is, the best, spot for Bad Girls Club, but we got it this year around this time because of Hance Mania. I think that moves us into the following season, 27, with Blood versus Water. This made sense. I think you're going to do a season where people have connections. I think, obviously, they do this twist again with all newbies. But I think to test run it, I think it makes more sense to do it with 10 players you don't have to worry about reintroducing to the audience.
Right.
But, like, the choices were, I mean, I like some of them, and I think that in hindsight they were decent choices, but like if you would have told me after One World that Monica Culpepper was not only going to return to a season but be one of my favorites coming out of it, I would have said you're crazy because she was purple. But I think Monica was obviously brought back because they wanted access to Brad Culpepper.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about somebody who can draw in some new type of audience members. The Culpeppers obviously have their sports. I think it was football.
Yeah, it was football. Yes.
So, like I said, I know how to throw a football. I do not watch football.
I don't either.
But like, it makes sense. You get a chance to have like a celebrity on the cast, so you take that opportunity. I think Kat had a really good blind side. I wouldn't say she was necessarily a fan favorite or anything, but like, you know, you're gonna. I mean, it's like casting like Courtney. Like, you know, you're gonna get some like dumbass moments from Kat when you cast her. Like Courtney, you get snide comments. Kat, you get dumb comments. And obviously, her giving them access to a Big Brother player and Hayden. I think Colton, you know, he was there for what, 6 days?
Yeah. I think 100% they're casting people that they like their loved ones. So Brad Culpepper, we already mentioned. I think Colton gets cast for Caleb because they really liked Caleb, and they're like, okay, we'll give Colton a chance to redeem himself, but then he digs his hole even deeper instead. And then I think, you know, they always thought Aris was a boring Survivor winner. But they're like, we really like Vetus and his storyline, so we're gonna get Aris for Vetus. Obviously, you mentioned Kat and Hayden. They knew they were dating at the time, so let's get Hayden on here. And then Sierra, like they wanted Sierra, so they got Laura Moret. And so like I think they 100% got some of these returnees back for their loved ones, and then you get people like they knew they saw the potential in Tyson. Jervis was obviously a no-brainer. They needed someone from season 1. They're like, Jervis hasn't played before. Everybody liked Jervis in Borneo. So let's get Jervis back. And so like 100%, those two are probably no-brainers. So looking at it. And then originally they wanted RC and her dad, but RC's dad had like a medical emergency. So they replaced them with Candace and her husband, John, last minute. And that's why Candace gets voted out immediately in the first impressions twist. Oh, and then you get Rupert because like 100% they're going to have Rupert back, and they knew Rupert was going to switch with Laura. So they're like, we can test this theme immediately.
Yeah, like we're gonna milk this for everything it's worth. I think that all of these returnees make sense to a degree, with the exception of Colton. I just, to me, I mean, may him rest in peace. Caleb seemed like an amazing, pleasant person. Probably came across that way to casting. I'm sure they wanted him on. I would have been like, can you go date Todd or any other gay survivor? Like, but I'm gay, so I can say that. But
yeah,
ain't a different survivor gay contestant. But anyway, Rafe.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Oh, and then I forgot to bring up, and then Tina. Obviously, Tina needed redemption from All Stars because like, and I don't know if needed redemption, but like we wanted to see her do well again because All Stars she was screwed. So like it's great to have Tina back.
So like I mean, obviously the reason we need Tina back is because maybe it's because it's on my mind. Tina is Survivor's Dolly. You know what I mean? Like Dolly Parton, may her rest in peace.
Yes.
Queen of Country. Tina, first woman to win Survivor.
Right.
She kind of that same like country little old lady archetype. We needed more of that, and I actually wish we would have had more Tina in 40, but
Yeah.
no. But
We love Tina on this podcast as well. Another great person we've had on. So yeah.
I think like all of these choices make sense to a degree. I think, obviously like Sierra is very compelling. She goes on to really form her own legacy above her mother. But at the time, I also felt like Laura Moret was somebody who I could have always seen coming back because of how good of a physical player she ended up being. And they did love that archetype of like mom who kicks ass. I mean, especially just immediately after Dawn, I think that this makes sense. And I think Laura and Monica and Tina, they were really like, they must have really enjoyed Dawn's run. They probably were like milking everything for it because of how much drama came from it. But like they casted moms with no fear of how many they put on this cast when they usually only put one.
Yeah. 100%. But yeah, then we move all the way to Survivor Second Chance, season 31, and this was obviously voted in by the fans. You had like that whole group of 32 people that the fans could choose from, and there were people that I voted for that didn't make it on the cast that I would have loved to see again. Obviously, Shane Powers is the big one.
T-Bird.
Yeah, and T-Bird. Yep, T-Bird.
I would have just listen, if I was production and I seen T-Bird and Shane didn't make the cast, I would have said, and we're opening up 2 more slots.
They should have.
But that's why I'm not allowed to run the show, because I would make spur of the moments where I'm just like, but honestly, like this cast is kind of, it's hard to talk about because overall the production didn't pick these players. They picked to put them in a pool, but they didn't actually hand select them to play the game. The audience did. I think the audience came from a large different portion of the audience. You have some that I think voted more for legacy players. That's why you get Kelly, you get Kimmy, you get
Varner at the time.
Savage. Like, I think that this is what. Then you also have the super fans, like the community there, where like Kelly Whitworth, who was like an unknown to most casuals, was very popular, obviously enough to get onto the show with the super fans and the online community. You got players who I think people were shocked who made it, but I think that in hindsight, I think to me it wasn't as surprising. Like Monica, I think Monica. I think a lot of people were like, why did Monica get on the cast? I think that I remember back when I watched her pitch was all about how she stood up to Russell and how to antagonize Russell. And I think there's a whole portion of the audience that hates Russell and wants to just continue to scorn Russell, so they vote in Monica. And they don't vote in Michaela because he's campaigning for her to be on. So like, I think that like there's like overall, like I get how this cast came together. And honestly, overall, this was probably the strongest cast of returnees where I genuinely felt like, as much as I really want T-Bird and Shauna on that cast, I don't want to pull anyone from it, in my opinion. Like, there's nobody I really would want to pull, because the female that I would want to replace with T-Bird is Kelly Wigglesworth. And I still think that one moment at the end with her question kind of makes up for her lack of care throughout the game, because it was like, watching it, I remember getting goosebumps. I'm like, I did too. This is very like so surreal to come back to that first season like that. And
yeah, call back to Greg Buis, which is crazy.
Overall, like, I don't want to pull anyone off this cast. So like, unless they upped the number, which they could have done, they do it eventually with only 26 days in the game. So we could have done it with 39, Jeff. We could have had 24 players back in the day. Have you not watched the Australian version? Because I only seen one season. They got 24 on there because it's more interesting. But anyway.
I like the majority of this cast. Like, I think you have obviously fan favorites that are going to make it on. Like, and Kageon obviously is the most represented season with 4 people. Like, obviously that season was going to get all its representatives voted on because everybody loved that season that just happened like a year ago. And so that 100% is going to get everybody in, as much as you can say, like, maybe like I would have taken Shane Powers over Woo, but like Woo was such a big fan favorite at the time, and like seeing his blindside reactions for the pre-merge was pretty entertaining. So I'm not, I won't deny that. And then you get people like Keith Nail, that is a huge fan favorite. You're going to get Terry Dietz, that we also haven't seen in a while. That again, it's amazing to get Terry Dietz back finally. That he should have been back a while ago. Stephen Fishback. Like there's a lot of great people on this cast that I loved seeing back again.
Sierra, Abby Maria, like we get villains with Chaos Cast, and like this was like overall, like usually, and I'm talking to our audience because our audience has to be fans. Like you have to be a fan of Survivor to be watching this vlog.
Right.
Usually, you guys disappoint me. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Usually, your all's votes. It seems like maybe you all drink and vote. I don't know, but I was proud overall for this cast, the choices that the audience made, because they did hit everything you would want. There's heroes, there's villains, there's fan favorites, there's wild cards, there's people who need redemption, there's people who have rivalries. There's it came together, and I think that production should have taken a hint whenever they brought the hands of the fans. Maybe they should have let us vote on me because we did it correct once, and they shouldn't have let us vote whether we wanted fire making or not.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with that. I think both of those would have been great if we didn't, because I didn't think fans were going to vote fire making in, and then it would have been great to actually vote in the cast, because I think we get some very different people on that cast if the fans actually voted. So but yeah, so that is second chance, and then a few seasons later we are going to get Game Changers, and the theme didn't make sense because why were some of these people labeled Game Changers? Why were we getting Haley Ford and Sierra Dawn Thomas as Game Changers? Made no sense. But, and unfortunately their editing matched what the cast was, which was a mess. But there's people in this cast that make sense as Game Changers, but if you're going to go with the theme, at least go all in to casting people that actually fit the theme and don't just cast another second chances. Like at that point, just do a second chances too.
I have a quote from RuPaul's Drag Race for Game Changers, and it fits. This was the who's who of who's available, because you cannot convince me that this was the cast they wanted to come up with. And I defend Haley. I defend Haley as a Game Changer, and I think I've had this with you.
Yeah, you have.
In this era of Survivor, with players like Philip, Coach, and all these kooky, crazy Brandons running around who are completely out there, in left field, having somebody who comes onto the cast, and when they say, so why do you think you were brought back for Game Changers? And they look in the good camera and say, I don't know, I'm not a Game Changer. That is to me, because there are a lot of egos going around here who think they're Game Changers who aren't Game Changers either, but at least you're smart enough to know, so that could be game changing. But I digress. I think Haley was supposed to be like their under the radar female who comes back, and obviously that doesn't pan out for her, but I think by this point, that type archetype had been sniped out of the game. I think Monica is kind of that for second chance. I think, these players, this archetype does not do as well anymore. I agree with you that in the sense of it being called Survivor Game Changers, that we did very bad on the casting. But as far as the players they chose to return overall, I wasn't upset to see them play again. I was just upset that they called them this word that feels like it has gravitas to it when, they're like Sure, we can watch them play again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we needed a second chances too to get the rest of like these people on a actual second chance season. But like some of them, like also, I think Aubrey can fit in Game Changers absolutely from Koran. Obviously, like the other legends, Sandra, Tony, JT, Malcolm, Sierra, Easton. Like I think these people make sense as Game Changers. Suri and Ozzy, obviously, like so like these people all make sense, and like I would have been fine if they tried to find more legends to fit with those people and then saved everybody else for a second chances season. And then I think then you get different results, but you get the outcome that you want, which is seeing some of these people play again.
I want to throw, I know that this is not what we're talking about, but while we're on the subject, I'm going to throw it.
Yeah.
My opinion. If you're going to throw people onto a Game Changers cast and you don't put the woman who, the two women who, there's two women I want to talk about, but the woman who kind of, in my opinion, changed the show to this day in Amy on this, like to me, Amy is the reason that a woman's alliance is the most feared alliance in the history of Survivor. Every season, it don't matter if there is one or not, there is somebody on that cast who's going to say, I want to make a female alliance, or I am afraid that they are making a female alliance. Like this is brought up to this day, 41 seasons after it originally happened in Vanuatu. Why are you not putting somebody like that on this cast? Mm-hmm. Why is the person who came up with the vote the unassuming person? To me, Stacy would have made, like, I know that most people have been like, who's this? She makes sense as a game changer. She changed the game because she said one time, why don't we vote Edgardo? Mm-hmm. Change the game forever because now people do vote the unassuming person out. Right. I think there were opportunities, and clearly everybody said no. Everybody said no. I'm not coming back and doing that again. So we got the who's who of who's available, and we get Sierra Dawn Thomas is changer now.
Yeah. I do believe with that. I believe she replaced Natalie Anderson at the time because I think Natalie Anderson got like a concussion or something, and so like then Sierra replaced her. So like, is what it is. But like, yeah. I think we've talked enough about the Game Changers cast there. Let's move on to Edge of Extinction. We get our final captain season, which is of course going to bring back Joe, Aubrey, Kelly Wentworth, and David Wright. I think these four at the time make sense. You know, at the time, Joe Anglem is like the challenge beast, so you're gonna have him, and then Aubrey and Kelly Wentworth and David are all like probably like three of the best to not win the game at that point. So 100% makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you get the woman who basically redefined what women want to be in the game. You get the woman who is seen as one of the most robbed players in the history of the game. Even though I actually think Michelle did earn her win, but from the audience standpoint.
Yeah.
Then you get, like you said, the third coming of Ozzy, essentially. I mean, you know, Malcolm was kind of the second coming of Ozzy, in my opinion, and then the third one. Obviously, his, you know, run as the Ozzy part of the game ends with tragedy, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
He botches it. Anyway, and then you get, like, David, who, like I said, is an underdog fan favorite. I think that he kind of fulfills the same role that, like, a Cochran fulfilled. Like, really good at the game, but, like, kind of anxiety-ridden and nerdy. So
I can relate.
Yeah.
So I don't have any arguments at the time for these being the returnees that we got. They fulfill all the archetypes that you want out of these captains at the time, and give them their aside from Aubrey, obviously their final shots, and Aubrey's going to get like her final redemption. Obviously, this does not go well for her, but it is part of her storyline going into 50. So
on 50, they did not talk about this around the Favorites. But
Yes.
but I agree with you.
Yeah, and this is the only time that in a captain season where a returnee does not make it to the final tribal council. So the newbies really were out for blood for returnees to go home.
Yeah. Then we move into Winners at War. I think that this cast makes a little bit more. I mean, they only had a pool of what, like 38 player, 30, yeah, because there were 39 seasons and Sandra won twice. They only have 38 choices. The choices for men are a lot bigger than the choices for women because I think at this point, I think only like 13 or 14 women had won the game.
Yeah, it was basically Vecepia, Tina, Jenna, and Natalie White were the 4 women that were excluded from the season. Every other woman got picked.
Yeah, so like for me, I think that like there's not much to talk about with this. Like this is a good season in the sense that like obviously there's really good moments throughout it, but from a casting like what we're talking about, what makes a returnee, there's not much to say. They were all picked because they're winners, like, and they're doing a winners theme. So like the casting pool is 28 people, or no, 38 people. Only 14 of them are women.
Right.
So the cuts are mostly most of the really bad cuts happen on the men's side. I think obviously, like I know, like he has legal troubles. To me, Richard Hatch should have. If I was production and I was doing this, I probably would have said, what do I have to pay the American government to have Richard Hatch come play Survivor for our Winners at War season? Like, but that's because to me, not having the original winner is a notch against this season. Obviously, not having the original female winner is another.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's some winners like I think Todd. I think I would have chose Mike personally over
Mike Holloway. I would have rather had over Ben. Yeah.
And there's like a few things, but at the end of the day, they only had 38 people to pick from, and one of them didn't even know they won the game. I don't think at that point. So
being Tommy, right? Yeah. I think they had slim pickings compared to every other pool that they have been casting from for all these other seasons, and so it's tough. I 100% would have taken Tina or Vecepia, and then Hatch or Mike Holloway. Hatch also, I believe, from what he says, he was apparently on the cast, but then the Dan situation happened in 39, and so then they cut him because of the Dan situation. That's the rumor. So I believe his legal troubles were gone at that point, but it was the Dan situation that just happened that they were like, okay, we know what happened in All Stars. But like, yeah, I think this cast for the most part was pretty solid aside from the omissions. I think we could have added 2 more spots. If you're not going to have Hatch because of what happened, then Tina and Mike Holloway should have at least been there. But
and Todd. I think Todd should have been there. I think Todd best final tribal of any winner.
Yeah.
So, I agree. Like Mike Holloway over Ben, like everybody knows, Ben for me, bottom tier winner, not good. Mike Holloway, not the best winner, and from a strategic standpoint, I think he made a lot of bad decisions, but way interesting of a winner.
Yeah, 100%. His run for me is more interesting too because like he was still trying things even when he won those immunities, and yeah, he made the mistakes to get himself in that position, but he didn't stop trying to correct those mistakes, and ultimately he didn't have to idle his way through and hope that like a production twist came along. He used everything that was in the game that everybody knew about. So I think that makes him more of an impressive winner. Slightly, like not like one of the best, but like I don't think he's necessarily in that Ben territory. So
then we move to 45, where we
45 with Bruce Peralt, and it's interesting to me because obviously like we've had these medevacs that happen and then they don't bring that person back, like a Pat from David versus Goliath, something of that nature, and then here we get Bruce getting medevaced right away, and then he gets brought right back. So
did you hear me?
What
you said? You said a Pat from David versus Goliath, and I said a Courtney Moon from One World.
Yeah, another instant one.
Yeah, I think Bruce was brought back. My guess is that in the new era where we are a kinder, more gentle, hand-holdy version of Survivor, that when somebody bashes their head on the original challenge 15 minutes into the game, it has to be medevaced. We say, you know what, do you want to try again here in like 8 weeks whenever that scar kind of clears up? That's that's my only guess. I also kind of feel like at this point, because of 46, you'll know what I'm about to say. They were looking for a new Philip.
Yeah.
I mean, Philip filled a role. I think they wanted Philip to return at some point. I think Philip said he never wants to return, from what I understand.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to. When we interviewed him, I think he had said something about like he probably wasn't interested in returning again because of how the show kind of treated him. So,
so they're looking for a spastic, kind of out there male. And I think they thought it could be Bruce, but it ended up being Q.
Yeah. And I think Bruce obviously had the major character moments, like, and people kind of viewed him as like being a little bit annoying. Well, Katura basically, but like there were a couple other people that thought Bruce was a little annoying on the season. I've met Bruce as well. Bruce is great. But yeah, I think that's kind of, I do agree that's probably the role they thought Bruce might fill, being that kooky character. And I think in a way Bruce did fulfill some of what they wanted from him. So
yeah, I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. I think that like by that point, I think, and it could have been because of what happened to him in 44, they thought, oh, he might not get a second chance. And I think that clearly, obviously, they start casting and stuff way ahead of when a season. And I think that as soon as they seen what happened to him, I think they guarantee we're looking for somebody to definitely kind of fill that role in 46. Because obviously 45 is filmed, you know, when they're filming 45 and 46, right?
Yeah.
They're casting for both.
Right.
And I think they were like, we're going to bring him back, but now that he's coming back as a returning player, we might not want to like bozo edit him.
Right.
What that I think they were looking for. So I think they kind of shifted to Q, who gave them any moments of like cancel Christmas and, you know, trying to quit the game and
Q skirt. Yeah.
All these things that they wanted from this type archetype.
Yeah.
Moving into talking about Q, I mean, we might as well just jump into 50, where obviously we get a lot of legacy players. We get Jenna Lewis, who I think, despite her short run, I think was a good casting choice overall. Like, I really was excited for Jenna. I was bummed out when she was the first boot. Obviously we get Colby, but no Jerry.
Yeah.
But what I was impressed by Colby's story on this season more.
Agreed.
This one, despite his poor performance, as far as placement, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think that like obviously we get like Suri, Ozzy, Coach. We get it like this. A lot of these players we've already talked about. Then we get a massive, like 50% of the cast being from the new era alone.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where it goes off the rails for me. Like, some of these casting decisions are super weird to me. There's no one from 41, which was
41, 43, or 44.
Yeah. So from 42, they bring back Jonathan. Is that it?
Yeah, Jonathan's the only one from there. So,
but like they bring, and then obviously we get Savannah and Rizzo from the most recent season. I think that usually makes sense. They like to bring back people from the most recent season because obviously they're popular with the audience at the time. And Rizzo and Savannah both have really strong, fun runs on their season. We get Q back. And because we get Q, we need somebody for like the same reason we got Francesca to bang against Philip, they're like, we gotta have somebody, so they bring Tiffany in to bang against Q. And like, I like Tiffany as a player. I just always felt like, of the cast, she was the one who felt the least. I don't want to say that. I'm going to say it, but I don't mean it in the way that it's going to sound. She was the least grandiose player in my, like, she had I think she had the lowest placement or the second lowest placement.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. 8th place. I don't think anybody, I think maybe
there's Legacy had worse placements in one of their, but like from a best placement, she was worst, I think, or one of the worst. And I think Tiffany was more slated to be like a new era All-Stars, would have been more of appropriate. And also, like, to me, I really think Marianne should have been on this cast. I think Carolyn should have been on this cast. But there's just like
Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse. Like, there's people we could have put on here, but like I you know how I feel about Charlie. Like, those Swifties are crazy. I'm far away from Survivor. Like, we keep them. We keep Billie Eilish. We keep Mr. Beast. And as much as I love Zach Brown Band, we keep Zach Brown away from Survivor. Okay, we keep they stay over here with me at arm's distance.
Yeah. I agree. And like I like Zach Brown's music, but like I said it at the time, I didn't need him taking confessionals away from people on the cast. So I thought that was a disappointment for me, regardless if I think his music is great.
Because the thing is I like Tiffany as a player. She just felt very out of place in this cast.
She did. She was the WTF pick. Everybody said it going in, and I think you're correct that they definitely wanted her to feud with Q. I mean, they literally, when they announced her, they're like, oh, and Tiffany pulled her hair out because of Q. It's like, really, that's the introduction you're going to give Tiffany is the only thing you can give her.
Please give them some credit. Like, she is one of the strongest physical player women at this time, you know, from this era. She obviously played a very strong game. I mean, her closest ally goes on to win because she essentially plans to vote her out and then doesn't, and then she gets blindsided when she gets voted out anyway. Like, there is like storylines here for Tiffany. I just feel like they chose the most generic one, which is her like rivalry with Q, when I would have preferred to see Tiffany play with Kinsey again, because to me that's a more interesting dynamic. They were close, and we know Kinsey was planning on voting her out, but didn't. So, like, are they still friendly in this new season, or does Tiffany immediately just not trust Kinsey because she knows that she thought about voting her out? Like, there was a dynamic there. We could talk all day about it, but Emily makes sense. I think Emily was a perfect pick. I think Dee is a fine pick. I think Dee plays a really strong game. Like, she's currently on Big Brother, obviously, right now. And honestly, I like Dee more as a Big Brother player.
Yeah, I after like watching through Big Brother, binging it and everything, like I think Dee is probably a better Big Brother player than a Survivor player, and obviously she won Survivor. But I feel like it probably the style of Big Brother probably suits Dee more, honestly. And then you're getting the return of a lot of people that people have been waiting like a few years. I mean, people in the 30s, like I feel like people were waiting for Chrissy to return. People obviously wanted Christian back, Angelina, Rick Devins, obviously, like some of these people that they'd been waiting through all of the new era to see these people play again from the 30s, I think.
Just picks one of his closest personal friends because they want to promote their show on his show. Yeah. Sometimes that's the reason they return. I love Mike White. I think Mike White is actually great TV. But
I do too.
I do think his position, his spot in this cast was because they were like, people like White Lotus. So maybe if we, have him come on our show and, we put some of our players on his show, like cross promotion.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's 100% a reason why Mike White got cast again. But I do like Mike White. I think he's fun. He's a fun character. I think he's a good player. Obviously he in this season he just got blinded by the fact that he thought like Christian was 100% going to stick with him. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a questionable cast. There's people that I really like on the cast. There's people that I still get, but I don't think we needed to have half the cast be new era in Survivor 50. I think we could have done a lot better with that and done like a new era All-Stars for sure.
See, I think with 49 seasons, what they should have done is like kind of cut it into 12 season blocks. So
Yeah.
season 12 seasons, 13 through 24, whatever, and picked 6 players from each of those eras. Obviously, one of them would have had to have an extra season tacked onto it because there's 49 seasons, but like there really isn't, because you can kind of cut off like All-Stars and Game Changers and all these other returnee seasons because you're probably picking players from that represent that season with another season. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree. And like, 50, I do think, having like Coach and Ozzy feud again, like seeing that pay off 27 seasons later was really good. And like it justified to me why like Ozzy was back again, among other things, and Ozzy actually trying to change up his game. Obviously going out the same way, unfortunately for him, but like, I think at least I think he served his purpose, whereas going in, Ozzy was another one where I'm like, I don't need to see Ozzy for a 5th time, but he justified his reason of being there.
See, I want to reference my favorite song from a Disney movie, The Circle of Life. Ozzy came in and wanted so badly to change his legacy, to leave a new mark for himself in the game, only to full circle moment in the circle of life, and you get blindsided because you are arrogant Dodo, and you proved that you have the capacity to change for a short amount of time, only to return to the fields where you came from and get blindsided with idols in your pocket.
Yeah.
So for me, maybe I would have still cut him and put on Malcolm, because it was even more depressing for me that he almost changed, only to like have the payoff be like, oh, he didn't.
Yeah, Malcolm not being on the cast is like an absolute tragedy for me. I really wanted to see Malcolm's redemption more, so that was 100% like the saddest part for me, and knowing that we had no representation from the 20s is just sad. But
overall, I think that we can sum this up. Players are brought back for a multitude of reasons. They're putting together a cast, so they're trying to fit in people in certain roles. So we get people who return because they're fan favorites, production favorites, great narrators. They bring them back because they had great storylines. They bring them back because they had untapped potential. Sometimes they bring them back and say, we need somebody to fill this slot. Honestly, I think what makes a returnee is, do you leave an impression somewhere? Because I do think, for the most part, every returnee did leave some sort of impression their first, second time. They either came in with something to prove or something that they've proved and to repeat. And I think that that's what we're looking for whenever we're looking at returnees.
Yeah, 100%. I think those are definitely the reasons. And I think what makes a returnee is, what they may be able to improve on, what is their purpose for being back again, who people want to see back, or maybe they don't want to see back, and production still thinks they would make a compelling person again. But yeah, I think these are all great reasons, Devin. And so like, this has been one of my favorites that we've done, because I think there's just so much to talk about with what makes a returnee. I did want to say before we close this out, not only subscribe, like, share, comment, but if you want more about Survivor returning players, I think y'all should go check out our Survivor returning player rankings that we've done. That series is a really fun look at every single returning player and where they rank with Shane, Shanna, Brian, and I. So go check that one out. And we'll have more of those types of rankings coming up very soon, as well as, of course, more What Makes.
I do have a question for you, Jake.
Yeah.
Obviously, so the audience ain't gonna completely understand. But me and you were returning players for Vanquish, which is where we met.
Yes.
Why do you think you were selected to return?
I think kind of just like the story of like how Vanquish changed my life, I think is a major reason for me, because it gave me purpose in my life, and it gave me like a group of friends, and it really changed how this podcast came to be. Like, that's what Vanquish is, the reason why Tribe of Nerds is where it is right now, and I'll always be extremely grateful. And like, just to get that second chance to play again in an all-star season, and just to like make even closer friends with some of the people like you, Shanna, Brian, like, you know, it's just been an incredible opportunity that I'm so glad I got to play Survivor twice. To me, Vanquish is like real Survivor, and so I'm just very, very grateful for that opportunity. What about you?
Well, you have such a wholesome reason for being brought. They brought me back because I'm an asshole. And that I don't like getting voted out, and I was going to completely take any chance of being liked by the audience. Because I have no filter. And despite all the times that I told them no, they said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Sure, I guess I'll come do it." No, in all seriousness, I think I was brought back because I was one vote away from winning. And
Right.
You know, some say I should have won my first season. And some say I should have won my second season. That person is me.
No, I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about the people that won both your seasons. So, like, yeah, I mean, but I definitely think the argument is there, probably.
I love both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I was actually brought back probably just because of my lack of a filter. And they were probably thinking, like, we definitely know Devin's going to villain it up at some point. But yeah, so that was my prediction to why I was asked back.
Yeah. It's amazing that we've gotten these opportunities to play Survivor again. Again, Vanquish is something everybody should go check out because it's an amazing community, and this is where a lot of the Tribe of Nerds came from. So, yeah, just absolutely go check that out. It's amazing. So,
Kristen's gonna hate me. Times as you feel apt to play, but definitely sign up and go play. They're always looking for new people.
Yeah. Season 18 of that starts very soon. So, all right, with that, we will see you all next time for more What Makes on the Tribe of Nerds.